Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I am Katie Gray. I am a college counselor and a member of PACAC. Before our presenters get started, I just want a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button. Your camera and microphone are not going to be on during this presentation. We also will encourage you to join or sign up for other presentations that are scheduled during this lovely virtual time, and they can be found at www.pacac.org/virtual. And all sessions are being recorded, so if you'd like to hear this again, you'll be able to find it also at pacac.org. Now on to our presenters.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our presentation. Today, we are going to present to you on private but accessible possibilities within private colleges and universities in Pennsylvania. We are here today with you, my colleagues and I, as the ACUP organization, and what that means is we are all part of the Association of Independent Colleges and Universities in Pennsylvania. So we are so happy that you all are here with us today. And please feel free to ask questions along the way. We are certainly here to answer any and all of those questions that you have. My name is Melanie Gable, and I'm an Assistant Director of Enrollment at Carlow University. I'm going to pass it on to Andrea to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Andrea Sloan, and I am an Assistant Director of Admissions. And pass it over to Susan.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Susan. I'm an Associate Director of Admissions at Allegheny College in Northwestern Meadville, Pennsylvania. I'm going to pass it to Kat.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kat Swantak, Assistant Dean of Admission at Juniata College, located in Huntingdon, Pennsylvania, smack dab in the middle of the state.
And last but not least, my name is Miles Vita, and I am the Associate Director for Undergraduate Admissions with Gannon University, tucked away in the northwest corner of Pennsylvania in Erie, PA. So on behalf of the entire group, I want to say thanks for joining us here today. And the fact that you guys are starting the college search process by learning a little bit more about what is available to you as you want to continue your education. Myself and my colleagues here focus on one thing, and that is helping with transition. The reality is you have a lot of opportunity to continue your education post-high school. And so for me, wanting to speak on a few of those starting points or those first steps. And when I was in your shoes a few years ago now, a couple of gray hairs on the chin kind of proved that. But for me, I wanted to start with kind of two core areas. And for me, identity was kind of one of the first things that I looked and researched. Identity for me was about what does that school stand for? Who are they? What are their value system? And does that match along with what I've been brought up or family sequences or whatnot? You're going to have the opportunity to learn more about public schools and private schools and everybody in between. But for us, I think all of us in this room have really had a passion for private education. And one thing that does make us stand out, and I think it starts with, as I mentioned, identity. Identity is a fancy word for opportunities on that college and how you feel as a person. So for me, I think identity, besides being just a private institution, revolves around service. And service is an opportunity for students to kind of give back to the community in which that campus is located. Two, I think, is volunteerism. And volunteerism is a great way for you, again, to kind of be active on campus in a couple different capacities. Engagement is the famous word that a lot of our campuses use that kind of talks about being involved. And that engagement piece could be something related to athletics. That engagement piece could be something related to academics, something related to your core major. It could also be something related to volunteering like at a Habitat for Humanity. It could be something related to student government or et cetera, et cetera. I think wellness is also something that's very important that a lot of private schools are going to put emphasis within, and a lot of schools will define wellness based on kind of like mind, body, and soul. Like, who are you? What do you believe in? Are you being well in class? We want to make sure that our students are active in a very academic capacity. We want to make sure our students are well in a personal capacity with regards to taking care of stress management and time management, as well as life management. And are you taking care of yourself in terms of a health capacity, staying active, staying moving. If you are feeling under the weather, utilizing health services or the Rec and Wellness Center, eating well, staying well, getting enough sleep, and all that kind of fun stuff. Some private schools will have like religious affiliation, so things like campus ministry and whatnot are very important. You have the ability to kind of recognize what those value systems are. And again, for us, I think making sure that that value system lines up is a good starting point. As we kind of transition into academics, I think another thing that separates private colleges, especially those in Pennsylvania here, is about the core curriculum, is understanding that you are going to be a well-rounded education or a comprehensive education. Each school is going to have a little bit different term in terms of core or general education or foundation coursework, and all of those words kind of transition into the same thing. It's understanding that even though you want to be a nurse, or that you want to be an engineer, or that you want to be an architect, or that you want to be an accountant, that you're very well versed in more than that one layer. Kind of like the onion, it's about breadth and depth at the same time. Understanding that, yeah, you want to be able to build buildings, but can you do research? Can you read well? Can you write well? Can you speak well? Things that are going to transfer regardless if you decide to become an engineer, if you decide to become a nurse, or if you decide to become an accountant. So very cool. I think what I'd like to do is continue the conversation here and pass it off to my colleague from Westminster.
I did want to jump in real quick, Miles, if you don't mind, and just touch on that identity piece again really quickly. Miles made some really good points about recognizing a school's identity and if that really fits with your values or what you really appreciate. Every private school has its own personality, and that's what makes us unique. And that's what makes us so interesting is each personality, each identity is different, and we do value different things on our campuses. For instance, at Carlow, mercy is at the root of everything, and mercy really kind of encompasses things like service, social justice, hospitality. So really recognizing what the identity of the school is, what the personality is, and if that really fits in with what your belief system is. That's a really interesting thing about private schools and what we have to offer, which is a little bit different than what you could find at some other institutions.
Thank you, Melanie. I totally agree. So I appreciate your added comments too. So Miles kind of mentioned what it means to be a well-rounded student, what it means to have a comprehensive education. Because that is such a value of us as private colleges, it starts with the applications. It starts seeing how you would fit into the environment as a prospective student for us. And so a lot of people talk about holistic application review, but maybe you have not really a full idea of what that means, how that is considered, what all goes into play with that. And so I wanted to answer this question for you. What is holistic application review and how can I stand out as an applicant? I found some up through College Board, but I wanted to expand upon even what they're saying. So I'm going to take you through what those different pieces are in holistic application review. The first is alignment with institutions' core educational goals set by each institution's mission. So going off of the ideals and the values that we talked about before, how do you play into those roles and how do you play into those ideals? Of course, we all share among these institutions high academic ideals for our students. We expect that our students are here, number one, because of experience, because they want to be successful and thrive in a career. And so, yes, we all require your high school transcript, and if applicable, also transcripts for early college or dual enrollment. If you had an opportunity through this pandemic to take advantage of your extra time, if you have it, I know some of our seniors this year that we've been talking to went out on a limb and decided to take some early college classes, which I applaud you if that is you. And if so, make sure that you are able to have those counted for your education and sending those along with your high school transcript. And I know that each of the colleges here have done our best to make us as accessible as possible with the application process. And so check with your personal admissions counselor about the easiest way to send your high school transcript. I know for Westminster, we make it very simple with encouraging people to electronically the application process. We have all gone test optional for this year, and I think several of us have made the decision that that will be where we move forward, is we will continue to be test optional moving forward, because we do recognize that there are some juniors that are considering their options now too, and we don't know exactly where everybody will be for tests in the future. So you do not have to submit your test scores if they either do not reflect your strength as a student, or if they are not feasible for you to have. The only if you have a specific articulation program, sometimes those early access programs do still require SAT or ACT scores. So especially if you're thinking about a particular pre-professional program or a very high academic requirement program, check with your admissions counselor to make sure. But for us, in the general of applying to Westminster, I think many schools here, we are going to be test optional. The second is an applicant's likely ability to both succeed and thrive at the institution while enhancing the educational experiences of their student peers. So basically that is kind of getting to know more about your personality, getting to know more about your experiences leading up to college and how you would do in this next chapter of your life, whether that be residentially at a new campus outside of your home, whether that be if you are a remote learner, being able to independently work. We want to get to know more about that aspect of you too. And so I know that most of our campuses have been able to do personal interviews and on-campus visits. And I would say my best piece of advice for if you do have an interest in doing an on-campus visit is just keeping tabs with each of our college's websites and seeing our most recent updates regarding on-campus visits, because that could change before Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving, that could change with different public health concerns. But I know currently, I think many of us are gearing towards having as many on-campus visits as we possibly can safely. If there is a situation in which it is not feasible to do an on-campus visit, I know a lot of us have also opened up to virtual visits and virtual interviews. I do recommend checking that as well, especially if it's not feasible right away to do an on-campus visit, or if it's not in your interest to check that out right off the bat. I know we have all arranged virtual tours as well and things like that. That can be a really nice, easy stay-at-home type of option to get that first initial preview of each of our colleges. The other thing I will say is that in the application, there is often an opportunity to indicate your school and or community involvement in activities based on what you've been doing either within your school or beyond in your community. And I do recommend filling that out completely and honestly. I think that there is a lot of pressure on high school seniors to buff that up to make it seem like you are most involved with everything. I know as an admissions counselor, I appreciate just your honesty and how you've grown, areas that you have decided to take leadership versus areas that you've decided to just be a follower, and that's totally okay. But I do recommend letting us know what you have involved with over the last couple of years. And then finally, consideration of academic, non-academic, and contextual factors that together define and reflect accomplishments and potential contributions of each applicant in light of his or her background and circumstances. That is a weighty sentence. So to boil that down, a couple ways that you can reflect that as an applicant would be through an essay or a personal statement. For many colleges, that is an optional component. It is something that you might not necessarily have to submit in order to submit your application, but it can be a really good way to highlight some of your greatest accomplishments, maybe highlight challenges that you've overcame. It could be a way to, if you've maybe had a difficult freshman year and you want to express what happened during that time, that can be a great way to give that information to your counselor and to the reviewing committee for each application for each college. Kind of hand in hand with that would be letters of recommendation. So many of our colleges, again, are optional with letters of recommendation, and they will let you know if they are required. But we do encourage you to choose a good blend of academic and mentors for your letters of recommendation. Try to gear away from people that are related to you or have that type of a personal relationship with you, but people that have witnessed your growth over the last several years. Great testament who you are and who you could college. Other things I will mention, and this can be very major based, but there's an opportunity to also submit some supplemental materials about yourself. Maybe you are somebody who is considering communications or is considering marketing, and maybe you've had some experience with putting together different types of print materials or electronic materials through your high school. Maybe you're a music major and you have had opportunities to perform and have that recorded. Different materials that can really just supplement who you are and what you want to do can always be good. And the application committee can also review those, but then they can also make sure that the department that you're considering for your major has a good glance at those, because that could be a great opportunity for future scholarships in the department. It could be a great opportunity to really just get your name out there so that the professors know some of their brightest and best that are coming in and can really give you that extra attention coming in. So that is essentially holistic application. And with that, I will turn it over to Kat from Juniata.
Kat, before you start, can I just jump in real quick? Sorry, I just wanted to add one more thing to the holistic application review, because these are different times. And so thinking about activities, like we've started reading applications, and our first student was very heavy athletically involved. And so when he listed his activities, it said 9th, 10th, 11th. And one of my colleagues said, well, he stopped doing everything. And we said, COVID. Yes, you can't play a team sport if sports are canceled. So recognize that we do recognize that. We just needed to, bring it to the front of our minds that certain things did need to end in light of our schooling situation, but also then new activities actually had the opportunity to begin. So maybe you have a younger sibling and you're helping with their schoolwork. That's an activity. Maybe you're just reading way more for pleasure. You set a goal, maybe, 2 hours of yoga a week. A meditation session every day. You're taking care of yourself, and things and priorities have changed in this time. So don't think that because it's not a structured school activity that it doesn't count. We just want to know how you spend your time, and whether it's taking care of family, taking care of yourself. All of those are activities that you might want to consider telling us a little bit about if it's something that's taken on importance over these past 7 months. In light of COVID. So I just wanted to put that on
Yes.
everybody's radar, because a lot of things ended.
Yeah, and I agree. I just wanted to kind of highlight again, brag about yourself. I don't know how many interviews I've sat in, and moms will, boast and gloat about their student, and the student gets so embarrassed. I'm like, no, this is your time. Do it. You've put in the work. You've done all of this. Let us know about it. Brag, boast, even if you feel uncomfortable with that. Let us know. These are your accomplishments. These are the things that you have worked so hard for. Let us know about all of it. And I think Andrea made a really, really good point too. So maybe your 10th grade year wasn't great. Don't hide that. Write in your if you're doing an essay, explain what happened. Maybe there was a reason. Let us know that so we can better understand you and where you're coming from, instead of just thinking, oh, they didn't study that hard that year. Maybe there was a life experience that happened that you want to let us know about. That's what we're here for. We want to know about you. So give us all of this information. We don't just look at transcripts. We don't just look at test scores. We want to see how you will fit in on our campus. So tell us all of the good and the bad. Don't be afraid.
The way I like to think about it is, we don't know unless you tell us. So it's not all bad. And I think we all are under the basic philosophy that we admit people. We don't admit a number. And I know that sounds kind of cheesy and cliche, but we're all complex human beings with experiences and knowledge and passions. And, if it's at our core belief in the admission process to admit people, that's part of it. And that's okay. We always want to enroll students who are successful. And so don't think just because, like you said, had a weird sophomore year that you won't be successful. So we can't know unless you tell us. So don't be afraid to speak up on your your application. Excellent. So I guess it's my turn then. let's see, we were just talking a lot about the holistic application review, and it was touched on a little bit about how standardized test scores are a piece of that. And that's what I kind of want to get across in its entirety, is it's a piece of the puzzle. Like I was saying before, we admit people, right? You're not just a test score, you're not just a GPA. So consider it like, hey, if we want to paint a picture of you as a student, as an applicant, give us as much information as we can. And so standardized test scores are important, but they're just a piece of that puzzle. And so it's really great that a lot of us are kind of, taking this unpleasant situation as like a kick in the butt to move to the test optional mindset. And so let's kind of break it down of when to submit standardized test scores, if, how, all of the minutia of that. So let's say you took the SAT or the ACT and you do want to submit your test scores for admission. Fantastic. Now, there are two different avenues that tend to happen with colleges and universities in terms of submitting your test scores. Now, the first most popular way is to send us your standardized test scores via the College Board formally. This is typical policy for a lot of colleges and universities, for the fact that it is the most secure way to make sure that, not that any student would tamper with scores or anything like that. And so when we receive test scores via the College Board, that gets immediately put on the record, in a student's record. Now, another option that some colleges, especially now, have been adopting in the test optional process, if a student chooses to submit their standardized test scores, there is a place, I know that at Juniata, we use the Common Application and the Coalition application, that you can self-report your test scores. Sometimes there is a lag on receiving, test scores from the College Board for whatever reason. And should you choose to submit your test scores, you can self-report them. And then the college or university can verify those after they make you an offer of admission. So I know that's the case at a lot of small private liberal arts colleges here in Pennsylvania. We try to break down those barriers, whether you go test optional or not. Now, another term to toss out there is super scoring. A lot of schools do what's called super scoring, and I'll explain it like this. Let's say you took the SAT one time and you got a 500 on your math section, but you got a 700 on your verbal section. But then you took it again and you got an 800 on your math section and a 500 on your verbal section. What a college or university may do when they adopt the super scoring protocol is they'll take the best score from each of those sections from each time you took the test to make the best composite score. So in that scenario, we would take the 700 verbal and we would take the 800 math, because those were the top scores from each time you took the test. While not all colleges do this, in terms of making college education more accessible, we like to give you the benefit of the doubt that, of course, like every test day is a little bit different. And so it gives you the best possible outcome in terms of evaluating your academic ability for test scores. Now, also, when it comes to the SAT versus the ACT for admissibility, a lot of times students don't know whether or not they should take the SAT or the ACT, or if they should submit them or they shouldn't submit them. My philosophy is, as a personal admission counselor and in terms of admissions as a whole, always contact your counselor. That we don't want to penalize, like, just because you say, hey, I got this on my SAT, we're not going to be like, oh, okay, let me just quick, hack into your record and say that, even if you're going to go test optional, because really at the core of it, we want you to have a strong application. It's better for you and for us. So we will give you our honest opinion about whether or not to go either way. A lot of students do both. And let's say you submit SAT scores and ACT scores, we'll just take whichever one happens to be better in terms of admissions. Now, moving into scholarship consideration. Of course, policy varies between each institution. Sometimes I know at Juniata, when you apply for admission, you're also applying for merit scholarships. So scholarships based off of your academic ability. So when we're evaluating a student for merit scholarships, the college would be looking at your standardized test scores, the super score in that one instance, your GPA and rigor of your courses, if your school ranks, maybe your class rank, as well as your essay that you submit. We take all of that information to assess you for merit scholarships. Now, should you choose to go test optional, which given the state of today is highly likely, some colleges or universities may require you to submit a supplemental material, maybe, an essay that you wrote during school, or maybe they'll give you like a prompt to write something, or they may require that you supply some sort of academic material to replace the SAT or ACT scores. Other schools do not. So when it comes to evaluating a student for admission and merit scholarships, they just take that piece of the puzzle away and they put some more attention on those other pieces in terms of assessing you for merit aid. You would then have to check with each of the schools to figure out what their policy is on that. And of course, and I will always be a proponent of this, just reach out to your counselor. We don't get into higher ed because we're snarky people. We do it because we like to get to know our students. And that kind of transitions into the test optional with the holistic application review. I kind of jumped the gun there a little bit. I also like to hint at the fact that sometimes people don't always, applicants don't consider letters of recommendation to be like academic, information in terms of admissibility. But as we were alluding to before, if you did happen to have a weaker sophomore year or junior year, a lot of times your school counselor will explain that in your rec letter. And if there is an explanation for why you might have a lower GPA in that portion of your application material, that's always very helpful for us when supporting you for merit-based scholarships instead of making that assumption on our part. And I think also there is, not to make assumptions, of course, a stigma that has existed before this year that, oh, if you go test optional, that counts against you in some way. It absolutely does not. And I think that's supported by the fact that even before this year, it has been a growing trend for colleges and universities to go test optional because of the different inequalities or different practices associated with the exams. So if you do have that information, I know especially at small private colleges, that is absolutely not a hindrance at all. So that is not a stigma. And just my fun fact that I found via the College Board the other day is more than 2/3 of private colleges in the country, not just Pennsylvania, will be test optional. And that is huge. While some might be only test optional for a couple of years, some have completely adopted a test optional philosophy. So we're at a very monumentous time in seeing a shift in the philosophy of college admissions. So while a lot of us have been doing this for a little bit, please know that it's merely just a piece of the puzzle for your application that we could consider or not consider. So in terms of the holistic application review, consider that just a piece of the puzzle. I will now kick it off to Susan from Allegheny.
I'm actually going to jump in real quick
yes,
if
I'm
you
sorry.
don't mind. I had just a couple points about test optional. While most of us here have gone test optional for the admissions process, make sure you are looking closely into things like if you're an athlete, athletic eligibility and the requirements. I know, Carlow, we are NAIA, and the NAIA has not come out with any information if they are going to eliminate that test requirement for eligibility. So make sure you do look into that when you are looking to go test optional and just decide not to test at all. So if you are an athlete, make sure you look into that. And another piece that I wanted to add, more and more private schools are starting to adopt the CLT as another version of the standardized test in which they are accepting. The CLT is the classical learning test, Carlow did adopt that as one of the versions of a standardized test that we will accept for admission. And I do know that the CLT can be proctored remotely. So the CLT has been offered in-home, being proctored remotely. So that is another option if you are looking to get a standardized test score in and you can't find an SAT or ACT open. Look for the different universities and colleges that you're interested in and see if they do accept the CLT as well.
In addition to that too, some majors or colleges within a college or university do require test scores while others might not. So while you go to the admission website page of an institution in and of itself, sometimes you might have to dig a little bit deeper to see if you are applying to a more specific program at that college or university, to inquire whether or not you would need to submit standardized test scores. So while it's an overall trend, of course, there will be some more specific instances of whether or not a program will be test optional.
And if you don't want to dig for that answer, just ask your admissions counselor. That's what we're here for. Use us as your resource. If it's too hard for you to find on the internet, we know. So just ask us.
It's the golden rule. Always ask if you don't know.
All right. Before I start, I just want to ask my fellow colleagues, Allegheny's been test optional for 5 years. Are we all test optional? Does everyone want to chime in on behalf of their institution?
Juniata's been test optional since 1998.
All right.
Carlow went test optional because of the pandemic. So
yeah, last year we were test optional by major, and this year we are test optional across the board. The only exceptions we have are with our specific like pre-medicine and pre-dental articulation agreements.
Gannon has also been test optional by major, and we expanded it to cover all majors for fall 2021 and beyond.
Excellent. Thank you all. I just wanted to make sure we all got our piece out there, since we're representing such different and unique schools. So my part of the presentation is on academic support. And one of the things I wanted to talk about was, some of the different programs that private colleges are able to put forth to applicants and to students. And so I wanted to start with just two definitions, which you'll hear throughout the college search process. The terms persistence and retention. So persistence is about graduation rate start to completion. So persistence to graduation, some schools will list a 6-year statistic, while some schools will list a 4-year statistic. So if you look at the screen, persistence rate for those who entered full-time in a private 4-year college was 90% versus 64.2% for students who went in part-time. So full-time students persist to graduation at much higher rates than their part-time peers. And retention is the statistic which is typically measured between first and second year. So beginning at an institution and returning to that same institution between your first and second year. So these are two important measures for colleges. And two of the programs that really will help students with these two statistics are our support programs. So I'm listing them as academic support, but there's more to academic support in that social and happiness, general happiness and well-being leads to academic success generally, and leads to persistence and retention. So the first thing I want to talk about were bridge programs. So if you are typically, if you're a first generation college student, which means neither your mother nor your father enrolled in a 4-year institution and earned a 4-year degree. So if they started college but did not persist to graduation, that still classifies you as a first generation college student. If you are a younger sibling and you have an older sibling who enrolled and earned a 4-year degree, you are still a first generation college student, even if it is a sibling. I've heard that misconception before. So bridge programs might be opportunities that colleges will offer to this first generation college student. Usually it's just a how-to college. Programs in summer, programs just prior to the start of classes where you're able to come into the school a little earlier. Maybe it's a long weekend, maybe it's a week. They all take on different formats, but they are to teach you, where do you go? Who do you ask? The basic terms to be successful and to catch up with your peers. You know, who is the registrar and what is this person's role in the college? What are office hours? Why should I go to talk to my professor in his or her office after class? What are the benefits, the goals, the rationale behind office hours? So first generation programs are just to give you a little extra time before the entire student body enrolls in the college and you might feel one in a bigger crowd. So giving first generation who may not have had the opportunity or the knowledgeable people to turn to be the most successful college student. So bridge programs might be also available to students coming from under-resourced high schools. So these are high schools that might not be as well funded. So you might not have the exact opportunities that some of your peers do coming from other schools enrolling. So things like access to technology, things that just might have make your ability to persist to graduation to be able to be successful.
Susan, can I
bridge
jump
programs
in?
will be offered.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Just like on top of that too,
Yeah.
and of course I can only speak from my experience at Juniata. A lot of schools, when they're looking at an application for admission, have scholarships and grants for first generation students. I know here at Juniata, we have a program, a fellowship where if you are a first generation college student from an underrepresented population, we have a scholarship fund that helps those students pay for textbooks and technology. So I think that is a growing trend too. So on top of the academic and social support when you are on campus, a lot of times there is financial support to supplement that as well in terms of whether it's social or academic. Sorry to jump in that rapidly.
No worries. Another type of bridge program you might find is a bridge program for students just coming from a different geography. So perhaps for our international students, from our students that might be transitioning in a major way. So we are a more rural area in Northwestern Pennsylvania. So we have a bridge program in which students that might be coming from New York City, from Los Angeles, from Miami, larger cities, to help them adjust and acclimate to their surroundings. I have a number of students that have enrolled at Allegheny College who have never seen snow before. And so they are coming not necessarily knowing what to buy, to wear when the weather takes a turn. So bridge programs have a number of different goals set up. Like Kat mentioned, there's resources behind students invited to these programs, from textbook scholarships, and just let's all get in a van or a bus and take a shopping trip to make sure you have what you need to be warm enough and comfortable in our community. So these bridge programs are one of the opportunities that will help students be successful in college. Cohort programs, this is a little bit different, similar in that it is a group of students invited to come to college, generally at a different time period. So over the summer, a little bit sooner. So a number of cohort programs exist based upon special interests or talents. At Allegheny, we have a civic engagement cohort. These are students that have a philanthropic heart, have been majorly invested in civic engagement and community service in their hometowns. And so these students take a class together and dedicate themselves to designated sites throughout our community. So in women's services, for example, or in the local elementary school, and they serve as mentors and resources. There's also funding available in some of these programs, although some of them are strictly volunteer. Some might fall into the category of work study, so they become sources of employment for our students. Being part of a cohort, so a group of similar students with similar ambitions, similar goals, and a similar function, will help students persist to graduation. They get to be part of a community where everybody seems to know you and has similar values. Another cohort might be an honors program. So this is to make sure that those students that are real high flyers, real high academic achievers, are in with a group of students who are also similarly very academically motivated and wishing to persist at a much faster pace, wishing to learn a little faster, maybe have the foundations of reading well, speaking well, those things that Miles mentioned at the beginning of our college values, or reading, writing, speaking, thinking, presenting skills. An honor student might already have a much stronger foundation in these skills. So getting this group of high flyers together will make students generally overall more successful, because they don't feel like they're alone in their values and their momentum through school. Another cohort program is specialty housing. So I think most schools offer things like language houses. So maybe you are someone who already speaks a second language, or really has a passion to learn another language. The opportunity to perhaps live in a home and in your common areas, speak that language, to be able to develop that talent. Our informal academic support, I wanted to just touch upon that briefly as well. So informal academic support, your friends, tutoring, study sessions, groups, that will all help you be a successful college student. Our social support networks, your friends, your teammates, these are all people that will help get you through the college pathway. And finally, I wanted to touch upon, you can see on the screen, each of us has a formal center on campus that is academic support. So Allegheny has our Gateway and Learning Commons. Carlow has our Center for Academic Achievement. Gannon's the Student Success Center. Juniata's Quest Learning Services. Westminster is an Academic Success Center. These are physical places with staff employed rather, to help you be successful. So we are there to help you be successful students from entrance to graduation. And now I pass it on to Melanie, to cover scholarships and financial aid.
So I know we are running out of time, so I'm going to try to fly through this as fast as I can, but I know a big misconception of private educations is they are not affordable. You will see the price tag and you will say, okay, the tuition at this school is $30,000 more than a public school. So there are so many different things available for students financially at private schools that could differ from public schools. For instance, scholarships. So when like we mentioned earlier, when we review for admission, we generally review for scholarships simultaneously based on things like academic, merit-based. Some private schools also, like Carlow, we offer athletic money. We offer honor scholarships. We offer different scholarships based on things that you are bringing to the table to help offset that high price tag. Also, private schools can offer different awards and grants based on your situation. So if you are, say, a legacy, a parent that has graduated from the school, there could be money available for you for that. If you're a resident student, there could be grant money available for you for that. If you're coming from out of state to try to offset some of that in-state grant money that you could lose, private schools can try to offset that costs as well. Also, some schools offer religiously affiliated awards or grants. So at Carlow, we are a Catholic university, so we do offer money for students who graduate from a Catholic high school. So being a private school, we have all kinds of different ways for students to get some scholarship money, grant money, award money to really start chipping away at that cost for you. So a really big piece of advice is don't write off a private school based off of their initial cost. Apply, get admitted, file your FAFSA and see what your financial aid award letter could look like. Once you add all of your scholarship money, award money, grant money that school could provide you, you could see that it could turn out to be even more financially doable than a public school. So never write off a private school because of their initial cost. At Carlow, the only application for financial aid that we require is the FAFSA. But I always recommend that each school that you're looking at, make sure you are looking at the financial aid website or asking your admissions counselor if there is a certain application that you would need to apply to get their financial aid. Give us all of the information, like if you are a legacy, things like that. Ask us. Are there other scholarships I can apply for? Again, use us as a resource and we can let you know everything that you could qualify for. So always, always use us as a resource and just ask, can I get some more financial aid? And we'll see what we could have available for you. We may not know, like I said, that you were a legacy or something like that. So just give us all of that information. And private schools, I know, Carlow, we do offer institutional grant money on top of any federal or state grant money that you could receive based off of your FAFSA results and based off of your financial need. And of course, there's always that loans and work study that you would receive on your financial aid award letter as well. So again, don't write off a private school because of their initial cost. File that FAFSA. Ask us what financial aid is available and we can try to really work with you to get that number down as much as possible. With that being said, I think we have 1 minute left. What questions or concerns do you have for us? Miles, anything in the chat? Any questions that you're seeing? I think you might be muted.
The one question we did get was related to what private schools looking for in an applicant. And so I think maybe if we all touch on our way out and said our goodbye with our one piece of advice, I think that would answer the question. And for me, it's being connected with me as a counselor. I'm here to help and I really enjoy working with the students and families directly. So if you're interested in a particular campus, please utilize those resources.
I think we are always looking for the right fit. So that student that stands out, that really connects with the Carlow mission, that connects with service, things like that, as well as those academic achievements.
I would say here that anything that you can show us or tell us that will show us that you can be successful here academically, as we say we enroll graduates. So show us that you can be successful academically in any way you can, and that's definitely what we're looking for.
I would say any of those things, but I would say also it's just about institutional fit. So we are very much the small private community. And so if you are looking to get involved and looking to have that 7-day-a-week campus feel, then we're the kind of place for you. So that's who I'm looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. So Allegheny, I just want to say, don't quit your passion. So if you think you want to be a business major, you want to be a doctor, but you also love to sing or create art, keep being an artist who happens to be a doctor or a business owner. You can be many things, not just one thing. This is just your undergraduate education and the best is yet to come. And we're just looking for those visionaries. You're on mute, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today, and presenters, thank you for sharing your insights and very helpful information. As you close out of the presentation, there will be a quick survey. We ask that you fill that out to help us prepare for the future and other great info sessions. Sign up for other sessions again at pacac.org/virtual. And this is recorded, so in about a week it will be available on the PACAC website. Thank you. Thank you all.